The map to your deepest emotional vulnerabilities has already been drawn by your past, and for a manipulator, it is a secret blueprint. Every one of us carries an invisible history of how we learned to connect, to trust, to fear abandonment, or to guard our independence. These are not just personality quirks, they are patterns of profound psychological design etched into us from childhood. For those who seek to control, to exploit, to bend others to their will, these patterns are not simply observed, they are meticulously studied, understood, and ultimately weaponized. Today, you will learn the chilling truth about how your very attachment style provides a hidden entryway for manipulation, why certain painful relationship patterns repeat themselves with uncanny precision, and most importantly, how to finally break free from cycles designed to keep you trapped. Understanding this mechanism is not merely academic, it is an essential act of self-preservation in a world where emotional integrity is constantly under siege. This knowledge is your shield. Let us begin with the two most common insecure attachment styles, the anxious and the avoidant. These are not flaws, but deeply ingrained survival strategies developed in response to early experiences with caregivers. For the anxiously attached, the world taught them that love was often inconsistent, approval was hard-won, and connection was precarious. They developed a vigilant awareness of others' moods, a profound hunger for reassurance, and a deep, gnawing fear of abandonment. They crave closeness, often sacrificing their own needs for the sake of maintaining a bond, however tenuous. This is their emotional architecture. In contrast, the avoidantly attached learned a different lesson, that relying on others led to disappointment, intrusion, or engulfment. They developed a powerful self-sufficiency, a preference for independence, and a deep discomfort with emotional intimacy. For them, closeness feels like a threat to their autonomy, a trap. They build walls, emotional and sometimes physical, to protect their inner world from what they perceive as suffocating demands. This fundamental understanding of how we bond, rooted in seminal psychological research on early human relationships from the mid-20th century onward, reveals the specific emotional triggers that manipulators can press with devastating precision. They don't need a psychological degree, they simply need to observe your behavior, your reactions, your patterns of seeking or retreating. They watch, they learn, and then they act. This insight into the underlying mechanics of emotional connection is so vital, so rarely discussed in plain terms. If this exploration of hidden psychological vulnerabilities resonates with you, or if you are finding yourself seeing these patterns for the very first time, consider commenting below with a simple phrase about how recognizing these blueprints changes your view of past interactions. And subscribing helps signal to the algorithm that this critical knowledge needs to reach more people, supporting this channel in exposing manipulation tactics like these. Now, let's dive back into the grim reality of how these attachment styles become leverage. These emotional blueprints are not just abstract concepts, they are predictive patterns for those who seek to control. Now, let's confront how these psychological blueprints are leveraged in the real world, often without the victim ever understanding the invisible strings being pulled. This is where the theoretical becomes terrifyingly practical. Consider first the anxiously attached individual. Their greatest fear is abandonment. Their deepest craving is consistent reassurance and profound intimacy. A manipulator, recognizing this, employs tactics that simultaneously fulfill and then threaten these core needs, creating an intoxicating and then terrifying cycle. Initially, they might engage in intense love bombing. They shower you with overwhelming affection, mirroring your deepest desires, declaring you soulmates within days, creating an immediate, intense, and seemingly perfect connection. This isn't genuine. It's a strategic overinvestment designed to hook your anxious need for closeness. They become your primary source of validation, the center of your universe, fulfilling every fantasy of unconditional love you've ever held. But then the pattern shifts. They begin to pull back, subtly withdrawing affection, becoming distant or suddenly cold. This triggers the anxiously attached person's deepest fear of abandonment, sending them into a spiral of self-doubt and frantic attempts to regain the lost connection. Research into interpersonal influence has consistently shown that intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable rewards interspersed with withdrawal, creates the most powerful and addictive behavioral loops. They might then employ gaslighting, subtly denying events, questioning your memory, or making you doubt your perceptions when you try to articulate your hurt or confusion. You're too sensitive, they might say. That never happened, they insist. This undermines your reality, making you increasingly reliant on their interpretation, intensifying your desperate need for their validation and love, because without it, you feel completely lost and unstable. You find yourself chasing their elusive affection, constantly seeking reassurance, convinced that if you could just be better or do more, the initial love-bombed paradise would return. Now, shift your perspective to the avoidantly attached individual. Their deepest fear is engulfment. Their core need is autonomy and independence. A manipulator understands this aversion to intimacy and conflict and uses it to slowly erode their boundaries, trapping them in a relationship they internally resist but feel powerless to leave. They might start with subtle boundary violations, disguised as compromise or helping. I just came over to surprise you, they say, despite your clear need for personal space. Have you ever felt inexplicably pulled into a relationship that felt profoundly wrong, yet you couldn't articulate why, or felt guilty for wanting to leave? The manipulator might also adopt a posture of helplessness, presenting themselves as needing constant care, financial support, or emotional hand-holding. They turn separation into an act of cruelty, making the avoidant person feel like a heartless monster for wanting their freedom. How could you leave me when I need you so much, they lament. This creates a powerful sense of obligation, trapping the avoidant person in a role they never wanted, yet cannot escape without triggering immense guilt. Their aversion to conflict, their deep discomfort with emotional drama, means they often retreat rather than confront, allowing the manipulator to slowly tighten the emotional leash. They feel suffocated, resentful, yet unable to articulate their needs or enforce their boundaries, becoming increasingly passive and withdrawn within the relationship. The manipulator, knowing their victim will avoid confrontation at all costs, feels emboldened to push further, gradually consuming their independence. So, how do you defend against these insidious tactics which leverage the very fabric of your emotional being? There are three critical ways. First, self-awareness becomes your primary shield. You must understand your own attachment style. Are you prone to overthinking, seeking constant reassurance, and fearing abandonment? Or do you instinctively pull away, valuing independence above all else and avoiding deep emotional intimacy? Journaling your reactions to closeness and distance, reflecting on past relationship patterns, and even taking online attachment style quizzes can provide invaluable insights. Knowing your triggers, whether it's the fear of being alone or the fear of being trapped, allows you to recognize when those buttons are being deliberately pushed. Without this foundational understanding, you remain a blind participant in a dangerous game. Second, prioritize pattern recognition over raw emotion. When someone enters your life, especially if they move with unusual speed, step back and observe their behavioral patterns. Is there an overwhelming wave of affection that feels almost too good to be true? That's a signal. Do they quickly declare intense, soulmate-level connection? Another signal. Does their behavior suddenly become inconsistent, hot and cold, leaving you constantly off balance and craving their attention? Pay attention to that pattern. For the avoidant, do they slowly disregard your stated preferences for space or alone time? Do they paint themselves as victims, needing constant rescue, making every interaction a plea for help? These are not simply quirks of personality, they are tactics. This isn't rare. It's the invisible architecture of countless destructive connections. Consider what personal space you've unknowingly surrendered. Third, and perhaps most crucially, establish and rigorously enforce boundaries from the very beginning. Practice saying no. Observe how potential partners react when you assert a need for space or when you express a differing opinion. A healthy individual respects boundaries. A manipulator sees them as challenges to be overcome, soft spots to be exploited. If someone pushes back, dismisses your feelings, or attempts to guilt trip you for asserting your needs, that is an immediate, undeniable red flag. It tells you they are not interested in a healthy, reciprocal relationship, but in control. For the anxiously attached, this means practicing tolerance for the discomfort of saying no and risking perceived abandonment. For the avoidant, it means learning to articulate your need for space without guilt and holding that line. Your boundaries are not negotiable. They are the perimeter of your psychological safety. You no longer see a whirlwind romance or a suffocating partnership as accidental chemistry. You now see the gears turning, the vulnerabilities being targeted, the predictable dance of manipulation unfolding before your eyes. You understand that the intense connection or the persistent obligation you once felt was not merely fate, but a carefully constructed scenario designed to leverage your deepest emotional tendencies. What specific manipulation tactic, targeting, and attachment style now rings true for a past interaction? Like this video to save these defense methods for when you next sense these patterns emerging, a quick reference to remind you of your power. This journey into the shadow mechanics of human interaction is only beginning. The hidden maps of our psyche are complex, and manipulators are constantly refining their art. Understanding the blueprint of attachment styles is merely one critical step in fortifying your mental and emotional defenses. Subscribe now so you are ready to identify and dismantle the next insidious psychological mechanism we uncover.